What is going on, kings and queens of this wonderful wonderland that we call YouTube? We are here again with yet another review, and to be completely honest, I think this is the one that I'm most excited for. I've talked a lot about this game. I talked a lot about it in my 2015 um, uh, top games of 2015 video, and this was my game of the year. I talked about it then. And now that I think about it, to be completely honest, this is probably the review that I've been waiting to do probably the longest, and it's honestly the one that got me out of my hiatus and really brought me back to the channel. So I'm super excited to do this video today. And I actually did my homework a little bit. I've got some things written down, which just goes to show how pumped I am to bring this review to you, because I never have any written material or any homework done whatsoever when it comes to making videos, but here we are. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, today's review is Until Dawn. Like I said, I talked this game up quite a bit in my top 5 games of 2015 video, and here we are with a full-fledged review. Let me start out slow here and just mention the cast. This is a game where they used full full motion capture, so the characters actually looked like the real people in the game. So just starting from the top, we have Hayden Panettiere, who plays Sam, from Heroes. You're gonna have to forgive me for some of these names. Remy Malek, who plays Josh, he's from Mr. Robot and Night at the Museum. I'm sure you know which guy I'm talking about. Brett Dalton plays Mike from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Megan Martin plays Jessica. She's from Awkward. And she's also a voice actress in Kingdom Hearts 2.5. She plays Naminé, if anybody cares. I kind of did that one for myself. I practiced this one a couple times, but we'll see. Galadriel Steinman plays Ashley. She's from the Ben 10 movie. Noah Felice plays Chris. He's from Joe the King and Brick. Nicole Bloom plays Emily. She's from Project X. Jordan Fisher plays Matt, who is also from Grease Live, for any musical fans out there. Ella Lentini plays Beth and Hannah, and she's from Greystone Park. And Peter Stormare plays Dr. Hill. He's from Fargo and 22 Jump Street. Again, I apologize. I absolutely butchered some of these names, but yeah, that's the cast that helped bring this whole thing together. Now on to the premise of the story. As always, I'm going to try and go through holding on to as many spoilers as I possibly can. If some leak out, I do apologize. But we're going to try and do this as best as possible and not let anything major out of the bag too much. So basically, there is 10 people total. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes. 10 people total in the year 2014. They go up to they're okay. So a group of friends gets together in 2014, and they go up to one of the people's um, parents' cabin up on this mountain. Actually, to be more specific, the cabin is Josh's, Beth, and Hannah's cabin. And basically, they go and spend a weekend or whatever together. And um, to cut the story short without giving anything away, Beth and Hannah end up going missing and being basically pronounced dead on top of this mountain. So everybody, goes their separate ways for a year. And then a year later, in 2015, they decide to go back up there um, and kind of celebrate the lives of Beth and Hannah. Their brother Josh calls everybody together again, and basically, the thrill ride escalates from there. Um, and some of the trouble that they get into, that I'll get into later, happens, and so they call, the forest rangers or the police, and they say because of a snowstorm, they're not going to be able to get up there until dawn the next day. Hence the title, Until Dawn. So it basically starts out, the typical horror movie setting, 8 friends in a cabin. Uh, what could go wrong? Turns out a lot of things go wrong on top of a mountain. Um, so basically, what something that makes this game cool, a couple of things. One of them being that what makes the game so cool and the characters so believable is some of the relationships that they have in the group dynamic. For instance, Mike and Jessica are boyfriend and girlfriend, while Emily and Matt are boyfriend and girlfriend, and Mike and Emily used to be boyfriend and girlfriend. So there's interesting dynamics there. Um, let's see. Ashley and Chris like each other, and the rest, either it's give and take. They either like, they have personality traits, they have these relationships, so that's cool. It's very, very, very real. And another thing that I really like about it is it's not your typical horror game, even though, the premise is kind of something you'd expect out of Misery or something. And as I mentioned before in my countdown video where I mentioned this, it plays on the butterfly effect. Basically, in saying that the choices you make affect the course of the game. And it's kind of cool because basically the chapters or whatever plays out like an old movie or a TV show. They'll say, it'll be the end of the chapter, and then when you go on to the next one, they'll say previously on Until Dawn. So it's like you're watching a soap opera or something. And in between, they have places where you, as the player, are sitting in a psychiatrist's office, Dr. Hill's office, or Peter Stormare, as I said. And basically, he questions. He gives you questions, and you're required to make choices. For instance, he'll ask you, what are you most afraid of? And the two options will be clowns or scarecrows. And then um, another instance will be, how do you feel when you look at this picture? Are you terrified or do you want to go there, kind of thing. So he'll ask you a lot of psychological, psychoanalysis questions that go on to alter the game as you progress, which is really freaking cool. Um, I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it again in this video. I love games that do that. Um, while we're hanging on a pro, there is a con there. It would, as cool as it is, and I'm not taking anything away from it, I think in instances like that, it would be kind of cool if you could actually, I don't know, like type in what you were afraid of, because there was a couple instances where both choices I wasn't afraid of at all. So I just kind of had to force myself to pick one. So it would have been awesome for a little bit more player interaction there. Interaction, the word that I'm looking for. That being said, though, let's move on. So I'm going to allude a lot to the countdown video where this was featured as the game of the year, because I said a lot of good things leading into this. Okay, 8 friends on top of a mountain, stuff goes wrong, and there is a serial killer on this mountain that kind of terrorizes the 8 people in question, which is really cool. It's to have a serial killer after you in this type of scenario. It's almost scary in a different kind of way. It was scary for me in general because one of the questions that I had mentioned earlier, what are you afraid of, clowns or scarecrows? Well, I'm deathly afraid of clowns. So the game took that and it applied it to this serial killer person. And he was dressed, he was wearing a clown mask, running around with a chainsaw or machete or something like that. Which for me was very real. Like the fear, it was a different type of fear because it was relatable. It's not like you have werewolves or zombies or vampires after you. Like it was almost scarier than that because it was realistic. Like it could happen. So that was another element that I absolutely loved about it, was that it wasn't your typical, there's a monster horror game, as I've said before. It was a very real, the game made it personal, and there was just points where I was legitimately freaked out and wondering what was going to happen. And another thing that I thought was cool, if you can't already tell, I've got almost nothing but good things to say about this game. There was a lot of cool points, that being one of them. Another one was that it really felt as though, speaking of, a horror movie or a horror TV show, it really felt like a Final Destination movie. It played out like that because there's there's collectibles and things like totems where it'll show you a clip of somebody dying or something happening that you can either unknowingly proceed to or alter somehow. which I thought was cool because I'm also a big fan of Final Destination. So to see that applied to a game the way it was a first for me, and yet another reason why I loved it. Um, how do I go about this next part without spoiling anything? Uh, I don't think I can, so bear with me. This might be a spoiler. Now, when I was talking about the serial killer, I had said that there wasn't really, it wasn't your typical monster game. And it is, but it isn't. It is because although there's um, this real person, this real serial killer up on the mountain with you, um, there's also a monster. So if a serial killer running around with a chainsaw wasn't bad enough, dressed like a clown, in my case, a scarecrow for other people's case, um, there is a monster. Which was also very cool, that being that it isn't a monster that I have ever seen before in a video game, or a movie for that matter, very often. It's not a werewolf, it's not a vampire, it's not a zombie, it's nothing like that. It is actually a Wendigo, which, for those of you that don't know, and as the game alludes to, it is a myth and legend from the northern states in Canada that results. It's basically a myth surrounding a cannibalistic culture. So if a person gets lost on top of a mountain, or lost in the woods somewhere, and they resort to cannibalism, the Wendigo spirit in them gets set free, and they basically become this hideous monster, which is also very terrifying. Especially with the character models that the developers chose for the Wendigo. It really reminded me of very Gollum-esque from Lord of the Rings. They crawled around, they jumped, they crawled on ceilings. They were just very, very creepy and very difficult to deal with. Um, so yeah, then just added, there's pieces of, the puzzle that you find from a year later about why Hannah and Beth went missing, um, while dealing with the serial killer, while dealing with the Wendigos, uh, and kind of, oh my God, what killed them? Was it the masked man? Was it the Wendigo? What happened? And the beautiful thing about it is that you have to deal with that sense of fear, but yet you also, because the characters are so real and it's a very engaging situation, horror games, horror movies, anything to do with horror kind of brings that out. But you really connect with the people, and you kind of get the chance to play God, because as the butterfly effect would imply, you get to choose who lives and who dies, essentially. Um, your decisions throughout the game affect which one of the 8 people in the game lives and dies. So let's just say something's chasing you or you're running away and you make a wrong move on a cliffside, they're gonna trip, they're gonna fall, they're gonna die. And then there's 7 people left. And it goes on like that until the end of the game. But don't get discouraged. Whether you consider this a spoiler or not, if you do, I apologize. If not, oh well. There is a way to have all people die or all people survive. It is very difficult. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. I haven't done it, but I know how. So that it's just so it's got a lot of replayability in the sense that, you know, I think each time you play it, it's one of those where you're gonna have a different experience, based on you making different choices. Um, and that's another cool thing. Um, is it really engages the player, and at the end of the game, you know, through all the blood, sweat, and screaming that I had, because the jump scares are pretty real. By the end of it, I felt completely satisfied. Um, in the sense that I could, you know, put down the controller and go, that was a satisfying experience because I made it. That was my gaming experience. Um, and the game has much more in store. I played it by myself. I played it with a friend who I kind of watched make different decisions, and it was just very cool. And I would totally go back and play it, you know, another time or two, maybe even more, because it's very interesting to sit back and watch people that have never played it before play it. Um, and it's still scary, which is, even though I know where all the jump scares are, it's still horrifying. Which is another thing, you know, it doesn't get old. It's still thrilling, even though I've played it multiple times now. Um, so that being said, I think I'm just gonna leave that to you. I think I've talked this game up enough. I mean, you can't get any better than both my personal game of the year, um, the game of the year for 2015, and its own review. Um, but if you like horror games, if you like games where you're very invested and very involved in the molding of your gaming experience, you are going to love this. And like I said, it's not the typical horror game experience these days. It's very personal. The game makes it that way. It's it's a great time. As much as I hate horror games, I gotta say, it is a blast. It's a scary, horrifying, awesome experience. Which is why I'm gonna keep the trend going with my rating, 10 out of 10. Check it out. I don't think that's any surprise to anybody, uh, being how much that I've been vocal about this game. But check it out, uh, and you won't be disappointed, because you know it's great. I really don't know what else to say. Um, so I'm gonna quit rambling because I feel like that is happening right now. 10 out of 10. Definitely check it out. Um, and have fun. I would definitely recommend playing it a couple of times just to get different experiences out of it. And just go out there and do it. And see if you can last until dawn. See what I did there? The title. Anyway, until next time, card soldiers, I salute you. And remember, we're all mad here.